So, today we're going to talk about difficult employees. Now, I have talked about this on the channel before, but this episode is going to be more about root causes. That's all coming up right now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams. This is the HR Hub. On the show, we get expert insight into anything related to HR. Please subscribe to the show or to the podcast. Keep learning from my wonderful guests. So today, my guest is Wendy Sellers. Wendy is the HR lady. Maybe you've heard of her. She's wonderfully outspoken, and so it makes sense that she also has her own podcast, which actually is even on the radio. She's been featured in USA Today and has authored books like the one in the back of her screen there, Suck It Up, Buttercup, which makes sense given that she's outspoken. I think this is going to be a fun conversation. Hi, Wendy. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm great. Looking forward to this because I think you're going to be very pointed about some things, which I think is welcome because, in HR, I think we too often find ourselves dancing around issues, and to have someone who's brave enough to go to the heart of it, that's great. Okay. But we're talking about today difficult employees, irritating employees. And so tell us about, what constitutes an irritating employee, because I bet for every HR person out there, this is going to be a bit cathartic.
Yeah, so I have a couple of books and I have a white paper called 5 Ways Employees Drive Us Crazy and What to Do About It. And it's actually the title of one of the keynotes that I do often in conferences. And the interesting thing about people that drive us crazy, whether it's workplace or, in your personal life, is a lot of it is just things that we don't understand. So maybe the employee is difficult, or maybe they're not. Maybe the manager or the coworkers as well need some training on different personality styles, different personality traits, even generational differences. But you know what? I find so much it comes down to communication and different communication styles. Don't get me wrong. There are definitely people that wake up and go, oh, what am I going to do to really drive people nuts today? And I hope none of our listeners are one of those people, but I think between you and I, we could give them advice to get out of that craziness and hold people accountable.
Right. Okay. So, but in your keynote, you have 5 different areas.
Yeah.
You've kind of categorized the irritating employees into 5 different categories.
Yeah.
I think on the surface, it's funny. Tell me about those 5 categories.
Sure. Number 1 is they don't listen. Number 2 is they make so many mistakes, which drives us crazy because we have to help them redo their work or do it for them. Number 3, they have no common sense. And I would love to talk about that a little bit more. Number 4 is that so many employees have entitlement mentality. And number 5, they just don't care.
A classic entitlement mentality. That's where all the older generations go about the younger generations. We will get to that for sure. Okay, but let's start at the top. The number 1 was employees don't listen. Okay, what do you think is going on there when employees are not listening?
That's when I think we have to grab the mirror and say, hey, what am I doing to help create this problem? Are they truly ignoring me? Are they truly, tuning me out completely? And if they are, why? Is it because you're always giving them nonsense or you don't make sense in your communication? Are you driving them crazy? Or are you talking at your employees instead of with your employees? And this isn't just for HR, for management. This is just for good old regular people. If you think other folks don't listen to you, you may need to grab that mirror and say, what do I need to do to change my communication style a little bit so I can get them to understand what I want them to do, listen to the instructions, if I'm even giving them instructions, and really get down to the point of learning the importance of 2-way dialogue. Talking at people is not going to get them to listen to you. Talking with people and then ourselves to shut up and listen for a hot minute while they're talking is what effective communication is.
See, there we go. Yeah. The outspokenness already. Communication, though, especially in larger organizations, well, you know what, in any organization, so it's hard. You've got some change management initiative you need to roll out. You need everybody to get the same message. You can't indulge 500 employees in a one-on-one conversation. where you listen to them. And for me, I'll be honest, part of listening is taking action on what you hear. And oftentimes you just don't have that. You don't have it. You don't have the ability to do that 500 times. What do you suggest?
Well, every situation is going to be different, but if you have an employee that's coming to you and, I call it word vomit, where they're throwing up all this information, probably because they've met the point of no return, like I need help, and they come to you with all problems. That's when I try to break it down. I'm like, okay, everybody, let's sit down, grab a pen and start taking notes so that we can say, okay, there's 4 different issues here. Let's take one at a time. And if we can't finish all today in this session, we can address the one that we can, and tomorrow, the next day, and the next day. The biggest thing that I see, though, with managers, and HR is included with that, is we don't have the time to go back to help our employee with their problems. So we might address one of their problems, we forget about the other 3. So again, it's going to come back where the employee just starts not caring. That's number 5 that we'll talk about, but they start getting unengaged because you don't care about them, or it seems like you don't care about them. Sometimes, though, we are not the right person. Maybe we're not speaking the same language, literally or figuratively, as that employee who's coming to us. Maybe we need to get somebody else involved that could understand their terminology, speak to their level without speaking down to them. So this communication thing, in my opinion, it's the number 1 problem in the world, not just in business.
Yeah. No, yeah.
And so, we shove our ideas on people, and we usually do it at work with a very small time frame, and we're not realistic with our expectations. So 2-way communication should always be the goal. And remember that we're not always the appropriate person. Maybe we need to get somebody else involved. Maybe the employee needs some training. Well, maybe the manager needs some training. But really breaking it down into small bite-sized pieces of information to figure out, what am I trying to get the employee to hear, and what is the employee trying to get me to hear? And I like to do some backwards planning of figuring out what the root cause is, and now go back instead of just pointing that finger at people saying, you're the problem.
As you say, it's one of the biggest problems in the world, probably. And so we could spend a very long time talking about communication. I will leave it there for now. The next thing on your list was that employees make mistakes, and sometimes they make a ton of mistakes. Okay, what is going on there, and what can we do about it?
Listen, everybody makes mistakes. Exactly. You have too. We're going to continue to. We learn from mistakes. So number 1 is make sure that your people do make mistakes, so they get that feeling to go, oh, I never want to do that again. If we keep fixing our employees, or in some cases our children's mistakes all the time, they're not going to learn that pain of going, whoa, I don't want to do that again. Now, how do I do it the right way? We need to also understand, going back to number 1, that the mistakes may be a result of miscommunication from the top down. You didn't tell me a deadline, so I didn't get on it. Or you didn't tell me a deadline, so I jumped on it right away because I just assumed that it needed to get done right away, and I dropped everything else. So it could be a result of unclear communication, that mistake, unclear instructions. You forgot to train them on a new tool or technology, or, general lack of training. You hire somebody, they have no experience in this industry, or they have experience in the industry, but not in my company. And we just assume, you'll figure it out. We don't need to train you, a new hire, or even if you've been here for quite some time. So empowering your employees should be, definitely something that's part of your culture, but don't empower them so much to go figure it out on your own that you still give them some instructions and deadlines and resources and training. And that will help them make less mistakes. But like I said just a few minutes ago, is mistakes are necessary for people to learn. So we have to build that into our business processes as well, to understand that mistakes will happen to everyone, no matter you have 20 years experience or 20 minutes of experience. Mistakes are necessary to learn.
Mm-hmm. I had a guest not that long ago who talked about managing, and you're talking about managing, providing people with the right level of instruction. She did say that we're so terrified of micromanaging these days that we don't provide, leaders are not providing enough direction because they don't want to get labeled as micromanager.
Listen, it's hard being a manager. It's very hard being a manager these days. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's not for everybody, and we shouldn't force people to be in management roles just to keep them around, or say, oh, I'll give you a few bucks extra to put you in this management role. Because if they don't want to be a manager, what's going to happen is eventually they're going to be unengaged too and walk out the door, probably with the employee and go to the next job with them.
Yeah. Or they're just going to be ineffective and, creating havoc as they go.
Hey, business owners, executive directors, are people stresses or challenges getting in your way? Imagine managing your people issues smoothly, addressing, better yet, dealing with employee problems before they're ever a big problem, adapting to all the changes in employee rules, and doing all of this easily. I can deal with your HR challenges so they're resolved. With me, you'll get the right things done, build a strong team, and create a workplace where the right people want to be. Your business deserves to thrive without a lot of HR hassle. I'm here to help you make that happen. With my assistance, you can focus on business growth, supported by a strong team. Take a first step towards a better business today. Reach out and let's chat. Visit the hrhub.ca and let's begin transforming your people challenges.
The next one on the list was common sense.
So this is one of my favorite things to talk about.
Oh man. Yeah.
Common sense. The thing is, common sense is a myth. Common sense is not common because common sense is a set of knowledge, skills, and abilities related to XYZ topic. And you and I may have learned certain common sense in our neighborhoods growing up, but if we're hiring people from different neighborhoods, which we are, whether you're remote or in person, people are learning things in their neighborhood level. They're learning things at their, maybe their high school, if they went to trade school, if they went to college, if they were in this industry, in this role somewhere else. I always think about the time when I was judging somebody, and I talk about this a lot in one of my keynotes. There was a time when I was, younger in HR, and I went to this dinner, and there's these HR people there, and I was judging somebody for just how they were about to eat their dinner, something so silly that I sat there and I walked away from that dinner. It was a pretty fancy dinner. I grew up dirt poor, so I didn't ever go to dinners. I didn't know that you're supposed to wait for everybody's food to be served before you start eating when you're in a nice place or technically even at home. In my family, you ate before your brothers and sisters took it or you're not eating, and that's it. I'm at this fancy dinner, and this person next to me starts, digging into their dinner before the rest of the table was served, and I'm about to say something with my big fat mouth. Fortunately, I didn't, and I made a joke to say, hey, what did you guys order over here that it's taking so long? And that's when the person next to me looked and was like, oh, I wasn't supposed to start eating yet. And I thought about that when I was driving away, like, where did I learn that? Oh, that's right. Somebody in my company forced us to go to etiquette class if we were dealing with outside clients, or in my case, recruiting and candidates. And now I thought it was part of common sense, and it wasn't. So next time you're judging somebody about not having common sense, whether it's a tool, a resource, a communication, making mistakes, think, okay, did we teach this person what we wanted them to know in our organization? Did we teach them about our policies? Did we teach them about our processes? Did we teach them this knowledge, skill, or ability? If we didn't, then guess what? It's not common sense in your organization.
Yeah, I think people also like to use common sense as sort of a verbal weapon, to minimize somebody. And I mean, it's just not helpful. It's, it undermines all of the things that we're trying to do in HR these days around psychological safety.
It really is.
There was something else that came to mind about that.
While you're thinking about that, I would just think about, if you are, if your managers are having problems with XYZ employee or several sets of employees, you might want to do a knowledge, skills, and abilities assessment. You want to do some kind of skills assessment. What are we missing in these roles? What do we need to add to our job descriptions, to our training program, to our onboarding program? What are the most common pain points or complaints from managers about employees? And maybe it's because we're not being consistent with who we hire and or how we're doing onboarding. I find that so many things slip through the onboarding process. Why? Because we're busy and we want people to get to their job right away. And then in 30, 60, 90 days or 6 months, we're like, well, we really wish they would have had this skill. Well, you were supposed to train them on that and you decided not to because of lack of time. And now you're mad about that, and or the employee has already walked out the door or been walked out the door. So really just thinking about where do these senses come from, and then going back to why they make so many mistakes and why they don't listen. And all does have to do with, okay, we as managers, as hiring team members, we have the responsibility to assess our candidates, assess our new hires, and then train them on what we want them to know. Otherwise, we really don't have the right to sit there and say, oh, I don't want them on my team, or they don't have any common sense, for example.
Yeah. Sometimes, though, there are employees, don't you think, that like the effort you have to put in so that they get it just seems really over the top. And it's kind of effort you haven't had to put into anybody else. And I'm not going to label that common sense. There's clearly a knowledge gap. But what do you think's going on there?
Well, I think a couple of things are probably going on. Now, first of all, we're always going to have that small percentage of society that are just there to take, and, they don't ever want to take responsibility, and they don't want to grab that mirror and say, hey, I might be part of the problem. Well, for those ones, we have to have good managers, and we have to, I'll say with new hires, really have an onboarding plan, whether you have it for 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, whatever your role requires, but following that through so right away they're not getting it, and we need to step in and teach them the skills or whatever it is that they're not getting, or unfortunately remove them from the team before they destroy the rest of the team. So that's for that small percentage over there. The other ones is we're often hiring because we're desperate, or we're not really hiring a person that we should be hiring because we can't afford them. We don't have the benefits that those people want. The bottom line is we get what we pay for. So you either provide the compensation and benefits that these people in these roles with these skills that we need require, or we prepare to train for them. And if we forget to train for them because we're too busy or we don't have the time, then it's just going to be a cycle that's going over and over again. And it's going to destroy your company brand. If a person decides to leave your organization or you decide to remove them, eventually, if there's enough of them, that's going to be spread all over the internet, and it's going to affect your hiring and your retention strategies.
Oh, man. Here's the one you were looking forward to. They're entitled.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
The fourth way employees drive us crazy is that they are entitled. And so what we need to do is we need to overcome entitlement. So first of all, I wanted to say, for just based on maybe like age or generation, every generation, whatever the youngest generation is, they always get blamed for entitlement. So for the youngest generation today, don't worry, your day's coming that they're going to start blaming somebody else soon. But even baby boomers were called entitled because they wanted, safety in the workplace. They wanted fair pay. They wanted overtime pay. They wanted, things like that. Well, what baby boomers had, for example, a lot of them had pension plans that still do. And we don't have that anymore. Most Gen X did not have that. Gen Y and Gen Z are like, pensions? What the heck is that? Never even heard of that. And so, overcoming entitlement, often I find whenever I get a phone call or when I'm talking in an audience and they talk about entitlement, it's usually like, hey, manager, your expectations are a little bit higher than reality of today's workplace. Today's workplace wants workplace flexibility. Of course, many people want remote options, but not everybody. And some industries don't even, allow that. That's not an expectation. But find out, what do my employees want and how can I help them get it? Do an employee engagement survey. Do some kind of benefits survey. Ask questions, but then go back to listening. Because if you're asking questions of your employees and you're not listening, now you're another reason of why you drive employees crazy, not the other way around.
Okay.
And that whole listening to that communication thing goes both ways, right? You asked your employees what they want. They told you and you didn't do anything about it.
The other thing about entitlement is, when you get out of university or school, whatever it is, you're sort of your early mid-20s, you're excited, you're enthusiastic, you're trying to make the world a better place, and you're feeling empowered to do that. Don't we want that? Yeah. And so we sometimes derogatory, that's not a word. We negatively label that as entitlement. But what that it really is a eagerness to make the world a better place. And by, boxing it and putting it in a corner, I don't think we're doing anybody any service.
No, we're really not. And you know what? You should have these conversations with these employees during the job interview. The job interview shouldn't be 20 minutes. It should be, I don't want it to be 17 hours of going over 3 weeks either. There should be definitely, a good old regular chain of communication, but how about we provide our new hires and our candidates with more information that they can go onto a Google Drive or onto your website and find out about your culture and your benefits and your onboarding plans and your orientation and your training and your development. So they say, yes, that's the kind of company I want to be with versus, no, you're on your own for everything. That's fine. A lot of people will be okay with that. But let them figure that out before they even interview to say, yes, this is the culture I want to be with. And then that way we don't have to then accuse them of being entitled later on down the road. But back at your point, we should want people, regardless of age, to be energized and excited about change in the company, in the role, and changing the world. And if we don't, then I don't know, grab a mirror. You might be part of the problem.
Okay, so the last one was they don't care. And I call BS on this so fast, but tell me about that.
Yeah, so the fifth way employees drive us crazy is they just don't care. Again, there's probably a small percentage that don't care, but most humans care about what they're doing when they're working, whether it's 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, 70 hours a week. There's got to be some kind of commitment and some kind of care there above and beyond the paycheck, because as humans, we need something to, drive us. So whether they care a lot or whether they care a little, it's up to us as business owners, as HR, as managers, to inspire that caring and that engagement. If I care about you, maybe you'll care about me. And these are the ways I'm going to care about you. I'm going to be looking out for your work-life balance. I'm going to make sure that you have benefits, that you have health care, mental health care, that my managers are trained to spot signs when things are going on, and to make sure that, hey, if somebody calls out sick because of a mental health day or a stress day, or, they have an emergency procedure in a hospital, how about we leave them the heck alone that day and we let them go take care of themselves and let them know, don't worry, we got this back at the workplace. You take care of you. I'll take care of everything else that, unfortunately is falling down because you're not here. Otherwise, they don't have the motivation to come back and be like, yeah, let me help you solve all the world's problems when you don't care about me when I'm sick.
I did a different episode on trust building. And the number one driver of trust, according to my guest at the time, was care. You have to care.
And you know what? For those people that don't have the personality that's soft and fluffy and everything like that, okay. Even if you're going, all I care about is numbers. Okay, well, now spin that around and say, in order for me and my team to get these numbers, I have to care about my team. Maybe I'm not going to be all gushy and, all emotional and empathetic or even sympathetic, but I know that when I care about my team, my numbers change. So that could be a way to trick your brain to say, take baby steps. Let me ask them about their weekend. Let me actually listen to them and respond when they tell me about their weekend. And that's a couple of things that I talk about in my 2 books, Suck It Up, Buttercup. And then I have another book that talks about jerks in the workplace. And, I really focus on the company's mission, the vision, the values. Do you have company values? Usually they have words like respect in them. Do people know about them? Do they take them seriously? I put company values right into the job description. So the job usually has the technical things that you have to do, but the soft skills, the communication, the behavior in the workplace, they should be in your job descriptions too. You should be asking questions about them in the interview. You should be talking about them in all of your feedback sessions. And then, of course, your official reviews as well. You should be talking about all that so that you have employees who exemplify the behaviors that you want and the technical things that you need done. Not just, oh, they're really good at, making those widgets over here, but they're a real jerk and nobody wants to work with them. No, we need them both aligned.
All right. We are getting to the end of this. Where could someone learn more just about to take in this perspective that you're sharing? Because there's a theme here for sure. Look in the mirror. Where could someone learn more?
Sure, then go to my website, thehrlady.com, or find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, or on my podcast, The HR Lady. So my name is Wendy Sellers. You can just look that up or Google The HR Lady. There's 2 trademarks, so I should be the only ones out there.
I suspect they're going to get some tips out of the book too, right? Suck It Up, Buttercup.
Absolutely. I have my books in audio now as well, or they're available on Amazon, on my website in PDF, and then they're also available in Spanish.
Oh, excellent. Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. Well, thanks, Wendy. That was just so refreshing. I'm thinking about that part where we have to look in the mirror or encourage, and actually not or, and encourage our clients to look in the mirror as well when they're experiencing problems. And Wendy has just demonstrated that that message can be done directly, and people kind of like it. I really enjoyed this anyways. I do have to leave it there though. So thanks for watching out there, and we will see you next time.